let's talk about the world situation in regards to people's reactions to it. I have noticed, even though we still have this situation still going on, it's not as severe as it was last year. A lot of people are starting to blame their economic and relational circumstances on it, and half of them had this problem before it even started. Let me give you a scenario. You guys have probably heard this from other people. Let's say that Sally lost her job when this thing happened last year, and she had to collect pandemic unemployment and take care of her business. Well, supposedly take care of her business, and she's finally able to get a little something, as far as employment is concerned, to get back on her feet. But now, she basically has to regroup. She probably had to scale back on a couple of things in order to live. Well, that's a good thing that she's starting to regroup, but she's still complaining about the fact that she's still struggling, and she's blaming the world situation on that. Now, you probably come across some people that are like that. They're saying, you know what, if it wasn't for such and such happening, I wouldn't be going through this with my finances. I wouldn't be struggling like this. And if it wasn't for so-and-so, I wouldn't have these problems at home and everything. But what we have to do is we have to investigate, and we have to try to remember what happened before this world situation happened. And we have to pay attention to the events leading up to that in this person's life. Because as far as, that person struggling financially and they're complaining about it and blaming it on the world situation. Well, news flash, if you think back to before this whole thing went down, that person was struggling then. See, that gives you an idea of what kind of mentality that they have. They still haven't taken full responsibility for what's going on. They still haven't. What they're doing is just shifting blame from one thing to another. So even when this whole thing is over with and it disappears in the whole 9 yards and there's a new world situation going on and everybody's kind of moving on, this person's still going to be around trying to find something else to blame for why they're still struggling. They haven't taken full responsibility. They haven't made any adjustments financially. They haven't set any goals. They don't have a budget. And that's two of the main reasons why a lot of people struggle, because I can speak from experience. I did it for many, many years, and just because I didn't have any goals or a budget, that's part of the reason why I did, struggled the way I did. But in relationships, that's another thing, A lot of people, when they had the lockdown last year, a lot of people were in the house with folks that they thought they knew and they didn't know. Because prior to that, they were so busy ripping and running, going this place and going that place. They thought they knew who they were living with, but they didn't know. So now they're trying to say, well, the reason why they're having all these problems that so-called suddenly surfaced since the world situation started, that's not true. Those problems were already there prior to this. It's just that nobody had the time to really pay any attention to them. And it's like everything went for a standstill, and you're stuck in the house with somebody that you thought you knew and you didn't know. And either one of two things happened. Either you grew closer together or you grew further apart. It was either one or the other. And last scenario, and then I'm going to let you guys go. Virtual schooling. I can't leave this out. I'm going to come across a lot of parents that when they had no other option of doing the virtual schooling, they didn't realize how messed up their child was in school. They didn't realize how woefully behind educationally they were. They didn't realize that their child wasn't going to the original physical school, and that's why they were behind everybody else. But see, they didn't know that. They saw the child going to school during the day on their way to work, or vice versa, assuming the child was going to school every day, and they weren't. So they weren't learning anything. And when it was time for virtual school and it was time for them to hit the books from home, parents realized that they didn't know what the teacher was talking about because they hadn't been sitting in the classroom. Or it could be a situation where the child needed some special attention in a certain area and the parent didn't even know. It's not that the teachers didn't tell them or anything like that. I don't know what kind of communication was going on, but I'm assuming that there was some communication. and it just wasn't taken seriously before the world situation happened. So it wasn't a bad thing the bad thing was is that the world situation happened. Don't get me wrong. Don't get it twisted. But some good things did come out of it. Lemons, lemonade. Okay. So what's happening is that a lot of attention that wasn't paid attention to certain basic things is now being given to those things because we were too busy, not paying attention. So if you're kind of going through it right now financially or going through it in a relationship or something like that, it's a temporary situation. But the thing is that your old thinking that you had prior to this, because if this is a situation that existed before the world thing happened, you're going to have to change your thinking. That's the point to this message. You're going to have to change your thinking because the way you were handling it before apparently wasn't working. And when the world situation occurred, all it did was just shed a spotlight on the fact that the way that you were handling it was not working. So, just take some time, put the brakes on things and kind of break things down and just figure out, a new approach on how to handle it, or else it's going to continue to persist. And that's all I'm trying to say.